I never thought I'd end up here, honestly. Julia and I had a decent enough marriage, nothing spectacular, but we got along. She's fiery, bitchy sometimes, but I always thought that was just her personality. We met, got married, and for a while I figured that was it. I was busy with my work and the accident I had a couple of years ago. That's when everything started to shift. You see, after my accident, I was left with some cognitive impairments. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to make me feel pretty useless sometimes. That's when I decided to get some help. An augmented cognition therapist named Dr. Mark Evans. He was supposed to help me improve my pattern recognition, memory, all that stuff. And honestly, it worked better than I expected. I'd always been decent at noticing details, but with Mark's treatment, I was seeing connections I'd never seen before. It was like my brain was upgraded, and I felt smarter, sharper. At first, Julia was supportive. She'd tease me about my new brain power, but I noticed little things. She'd get defensive if I asked about her whereabouts during the hours I was with Mark. She'd make excuses, saying she was busy at work or hanging out with friends. But I started noticing things that didn't add up: missed calls, weird texts she'd delete quickly, late nights she claimed were work but she'd come home smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. It's funny, though. The more I improved, the more I started to see her lies. I'd catch her in little slip-ups, like her phone ringing and her quickly silencing it when I entered the room, or her changing her story about where she was going. I didn't want to believe it, so I shrugged it off at first. Maybe she was just stressed, or maybe I was paranoid because of the accident and everything that came with it. But deep down, I felt something was off. She was bitchy, snappy, and would make these sarcastic remarks whenever I questioned her about her schedule. It was like she was trying to push me away or keep something hidden. One night, she was out late, and I decided to do some digging. I looked through her phone, and that was when I saw it, text from some guy named Kyle. Clear as day, they were talking about meeting up. I was stunned. My first reaction was anger, then confusion, then a cold, creeping dread. How long had this been going on, and why? I didn't even know she was capable of cheating on me, especially with some guy she met through her book club or whatever lame excuse she'd given. But the texts didn't lie. They were intimate, flirty, stuff that made it obvious they'd crossed the line. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, feeling smarter, more aware than ever, and she was out there fucking around behind my back. It made me feel so betrayed, so stupid for trusting her. I kept reading the messages, trying to understand how she could lie so blatantly. And the worst part, I knew she'd deny everything if I confronted her. That bitch was good at lying, but I had my new brain, upgraded cognition, and it was telling me this was just the beginning of what I needed to uncover. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept racing, trying to process everything I'd found. The way Julia had been acting, snapping at me, dodging questions, all of it suddenly made sense. She was sneaking around with Kyle probably for weeks. That thought made my stomach turn. I felt a mix of fury and heartbreak I wasn't sure I could handle. I kept going over the texts, trying to find some pattern that explained how she managed to hide it all from me for so long. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My brain was sharper, yes, but that clarity also meant I couldn't unsee what I'd discovered. I decided I had to confront her, but I didn't want it to be a shouting match or an emotional mess. I wanted to be calm, collected, strategic. My new cognitive abilities made it clear I needed a plan of attack, not just an emotional outburst. When Julia woke up, I asked her to sit down. Her bitchy smirk was already there, the one she used when she wanted to brush off my concerns or dismiss me. I could see the flicker of annoyance in her eyes when I brought up her late nights and her strange behaviors. I told her I knew about Kyle. I said I'd seen the messages, and I wanted to hear her explanation. Her reaction was priceless. She immediately started lying, spinning some pathetic story about how they were just friends, how she was helping him with some work project, and how I was imagining things because I was too paranoid now that I had this big brain of mine. I didn't buy it, not even for a second. She's always been good at lying, but with my new level of pattern recognition, I could see right through her bullshit. Her eyes darted, she hesitated, and her voice cracked just enough to give her away. I was calm, but inside I was seething. I told her I wasn't stupid, that I knew she'd been cheating on me, and that I wanted the truth. She kept denying it, calling me paranoid, saying I was overthinking everything because I'd become obsessed with my stupid brain, and that I was reading too much into things. Yeah, right. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. Anger boiled up, but I kept my voice steady. I told her I'd been trying to fix our marriage, that I'd been working on myself, trying to improve after the accident, and she was out there screwing some guy behind my back. The betrayal hit me hard, not just because she cheated, but because she made me feel like I was crazy for even suspecting. That's what she always does, gaslight, deny, lie. But I saw through every word. The pattern recognition I gained from Mark's treatments made it impossible to ignore the facts anymore. Her face turned red, then white. She tried to act innocent, to deny everything again, but I was done listening. I told her she could keep lying, but I knew the truth, and I knew that I'd never be able to trust her again. That day marked a turning point. My mind was sharper than ever, and I was starting to see how deep her deception ran. I wanted her out of my life, but I also knew I had to be smart about how I handled this. I couldn't just fly off the handle. I had to think ahead, use what I learned from my new cognition to get what I needed: justice, closure, or whatever you want to call it. She looked at me, eyes narrowed, trying to come up with some new lie, but I cut her off. I said I was done believing in her bullshit. I told her I didn't want to hear any more lies. If she wanted to keep her affair, fine, but she was not going to manipulate me anymore. I told her she'd crossed a line and I was going to do something about it. That was the last time I spoke to her that day, but inside I felt a strange calm. I'd uncovered the truth, and now I could start planning my next move. After that confrontation, I didn't just sit around waiting to see what she'd do next. My mind was working double time. Thanks to Mark's therapy, I wasn't just smarter, I was more strategic, more precise. I analyzed every little detail she'd given me over the past few months. It's incredible what I notice now that I never did before. The way she'd avoid certain topics, how she'd leave her phone in odd places, the subtle shifts in her tone when she was lying. My pattern recognition had become a weapon, and I was ready to use it. I decided I needed proof, not just her words, but something concrete. I rigged my house with some discreet cameras, just enough to catch her if she slipped up again. It was a calculated move. There was no emotion in it, just cold logic. I wanted to see her in the act, to have irrefutable evidence. I knew she'd deny everything if I confronted her again, so I had to be sure. While I was setting that up, she started playing her usual game, acting innocent, throwing out empty apologies and trying to guilt-trip me into forgiving her. That bitch. She kept saying stuff like, "It's just sex, it doesn't mean I love him," or "You're overreacting, I'm not cheating, I just needed someone to talk to." Yeah, right, please. The text said otherwise. I could see her lies a mile away now, thanks to the mental upgrades from Mark's treatment. She was a master at deception, but I was better now. Over the next few days, I watched her habits closely. I noticed she was meeting Kyle at a hotel downtown, a place I'd never suspected her going. I'd seen enough. I downloaded their messages, photos, everything. I didn't want to make any rash moves, but I knew I had what I needed. The evidence was damning. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and disgust. Satisfaction that I finally saw the truth. Disgust that she'd played me for so long, that she'd lied so blatantly. That night, I sat alone in my study, reviewing everything. My mind was clearer than ever. I realized how much she'd manipulated my perceptions, how she'd convinced me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. But now my enhanced cognition had shattered all that. I saw her for what she really was: a liar, a cheat, a bitch who'd been screwing around while I was working on fixing myself after the accident. The betrayal was a knife to the heart, but I also felt a strange sense of relief. Now I knew the truth, and I could finally plan what to do next. Part of me wanted to confront her again, but I knew I had to be smarter than that. I had to think about the bigger picture. What was my end game? Was I going to leave her or try to fix this? Honestly, I wasn't sure. All I knew was that I couldn't let her get away with it, not after everything. I had to protect myself, emotionally, legally, whatever it took. I was finally seeing clearly, and that clarity was both a gift and a curse. I'd been naive, but not anymore. Now I was ready to act. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I stayed silent, letting her believe she was getting away with her bullshit. I kept my cool, watching her every move, listening to her lies and gathering even more evidence. It was like I had become a detective in my own life, piecing together the picture she was desperately trying to hide. Thanks to my new mental acuity, I could connect the dots faster than ever: her late nights, her suspicious texts, her nervous glances when I mentioned her so-called friendship with Kyle. One evening she came home late again. The smell of perfume hit me instantly. I wasn't surprised anymore, but that didn't stop the anger swelling inside me. I had already prepared for this moment. I waited until she was in the bedroom, then quietly played the recordings I had made, caught her sneaking out, whispering into her phone, meeting Kyle at the hotel. Watching her lie to herself, trying to pretend she wasn't caught, was almost satisfying. I stepped into the room and her face froze. She knew she was busted, but she tried her usual act: denial, deflection, blame shifting. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "It's just sex, Jason. It doesn't mean anything. You're overreacting because you're paranoid." That was the breaking point. I stared at her, feeling a mixture of disgust and pity. How could she be so callous, so willing to throw away everything we had just for some cheap thrill? I told her I had enough. I played her own recordings, her own words, and her texts. I told her I knew about Kyle, about the lies, about the nights she was cheating. Her face turned red again, then white, then a sickly pallor. She started to scream, deny, accuse me of spying and invading her privacy. But I didn't care. I knew the truth and I had proof. I felt calm, dangerously calm, because I understood how her mind worked now. She was a manipulator, a liar, a bitch, and I wasn't going to let her gaslight me anymore. Her reaction was classic. She claimed I was jealous, that I'd become paranoid because I was smarter now, that I was making everything up. She tried to turn it around and make me the villain. But I saw through it all. I told her that I'd been working on myself after my accident, that I'd been trying to get better. But she destroyed everything with one stupid affair. It was like finding out the person you trusted most had been stabbing you in the back all along. I wanted to scream, but I kept my voice steady. I knew I had to act fast. I told her I was done, that her lies and betrayal had crossed a line. I gave her an ultimatum: either she left immediately or I was going to. I wasn't going to let her continue playing her sick games. I was done tolerating her bullshit, done letting her manipulate me with her lies. I told her I'd been analyzing her every move, and I knew exactly how to protect myself. As she stormed out, still denying everything, I felt a strange sense of relief, but also a profound sadness. I realized I'd been blinded for so long, trusting a woman who was capable of this kind of betrayal. My mind was sharper than ever, and that meant I saw everything clearly now. I knew this wasn't just about finding out she cheated. It was about understanding how deep her lies went, how much I'd been manipulated. But I couldn't let her take me down with her. I had to start over, rebuild what I'd lost, and figure out what my next move would be. The betrayal stung, but I knew I'd come out of this stronger. In the days that followed her leaving, I didn't wallow in the pain or the anger the way I used to. Thanks to my enhanced cognition, I saw everything much more clearly. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about how deep her deceit ran, how well she'd managed to manipulate my perceptions. I spent hours analyzing what had gone wrong, not just with her but with myself. I thought about how I had let my guard down, how her lies had crept in unnoticed because I was distracted by trying to rebuild after the accident. Now, armed with my new mental clarity, I knew I couldn't just sit around feeling sorry for myself. I needed to do something to reclaim my life. I started by contacting a lawyer, making sure I had my legal ducks in a row. I also took steps to secure my house, changing locks, installing cameras, making sure she couldn't come back or manipulate me again. It was all very calculated, precise. I didn't want to appear overly emotional. I wanted to seem in control because I was. My mind was sharper, and I was determined to use that to my advantage. What struck me most was how much my perception of Julia had changed. I'd once seen her as this fiery, bitchy woman who was difficult but lovable in her own way. Now, I saw her as someone entirely different, an opportunist, a liar, someone who'd sacrificed everything for her own selfish needs. It hurt, yeah, but the more I analyzed her actions, the more I realized I'd been blind to her true nature. That realization was both painful and freeing. I could finally move on, knowing the truth. I also started reflecting on myself, how I'd let her control the narrative for so long. Thanks to Mark's therapy and my own efforts, I developed a new sense of confidence and clarity. I no longer felt like a victim, but like someone who had uncovered the truth and was ready to rebuild. I didn't intend to let her destroy what I'd worked so hard on, my self-respect, my peace of mind, my future. I reached out to a few close friends, told them everything. Surprisingly, they were supportive. They knew Julia's personality, the bitchy, manipulative side, and they saw through her lies too. Their support was a relief, and it gave me the strength to keep moving forward. I knew I'd have to face some tough decisions, but I was ready. I had the advantage now, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me again. Most importantly, I realized I needed to focus on myself. I didn't want to just punish her or make her suffer. I wanted to heal, to grow, to finally break free from the years of confusion and betrayal. My mind was an asset now, and I was going to use it to forge a new path. I'd learned a lot from this experience, mainly that trust is fragile and the truth, no matter how ugly, is always better than living in denial. And if there's one thing I've learned, thanks to Mark's work and my own efforts, it's that I can rebuild stronger and smarter than ever. Looking back now, I realize how much my life has changed because of everything I uncovered. Those early days after she left were the hardest. I felt like I was walking through fog, trying to piece together a shattered puzzle. But my enhanced mind kept pushing me forward, revealing truths I'd never have seen before. I started to rebuild my confidence, piece by piece, focusing on what I could control and letting go of what I couldn't. One thing I learned is how deceptive people can be, how they mask their true intentions behind a veneer of normalcy. Julia's lies were expertly crafted, but my new cognition dismantled every one of them. That clarity didn't just hurt, it empowered me. I understood that trust, once broken, can't be easily repaired, but it can be replaced with honesty, with self-awareness. I realized I'd been so eager to fix the marriage that I overlooked fundamental truths about her character. Now, I see the importance of self-preservation and honesty above all. I've decided to focus on myself now, my recovery, my career, my future. I no longer blame myself for what happened. Instead, I see it as a catalyst for growth. Thanks to Mark's work, I'm sharper, more aware, better equipped to handle life's surprises. I've learned that sometimes the only way to truly move on is to face the brutal truths, no matter how painful they are. That's what this whole experience has taught me. Don't ignore the signs, don't let yourself be manipulated, and always seek the truth. It's better to face the reality directly than live in denial, hoping things will somehow get better. Because sometimes the only way forward is through the pain, through the betrayal, through the uncomfortable truths that lurk beneath the surface. Now I'm stronger, wiser, and more cautious. I trust my instincts more than ever, and I'm grateful for the clarity my mind's been given. Betrayal taught me a hard lesson about human nature, but it also revealed my own strength. I'm moving forward, knowing I'm better off without her, and that I have the power to rebuild myself, smarter, more resilient than I ever thought possible.